you can never undervalue what it's like to have a jug rinser in your espresso bar. So today I'm getting on the tools. I'm going to teach you how to install a jug rinser that's going to change your life. Change your life. Wow, that was a big call. So this video will apply to a bunch of jug rinsers. They're all very similar, maybe different fittings, but today I'm going to work with the Rhino 150ml Spin Jet jug rinser. It's proven to be a pretty simple setup jug rinser, and I quite like just having the one well and not a drip tray. I actually like having space. It drains well, it's quite deep, so it's good to work with. But they do also have an above bench attachment, so you don't have to put holes in your bench. So this is a pretty cool feature if you don't want to put holes in your bench. Let's check out what is in the box, because it comes with a few fittings, very helpful, but it doesn't come with everything. So firstly, this little package is our little spinner, so we'll need that. Now, of course, this is nice stainless steel, doesn't have sharp edges, so don't be too concerned about that. Nice and easy to clean. We've got the simple little sink well there. Inside this box, we get some attachments. So there's the actual spin jet. We'll pull that together and we'll put it together for you. It also comes with this little John Guest fitting. Now there's a couple of different ways we're gonna look at setting this up, whether it's John Guest or braided hose. So straight away, let's just build this thing. Straight out of the box, we're gonna put it into the sink well first. So we're gonna just undo this bottom nut. Now remember which way that we've pulled this apart. So we put it back together the right way. Now, it's just got two silicone seals here. One's gonna go one on the top, one on the bottom. So I'm just gonna pull that off. I'm gonna slip that through and then just put this back together the way that I just pulled it all off. Now you will need a few tools for this, just a couple of shifters. I'm going to help you put this together yourself today, but I definitely would recommend talking to whether it's councils or regulations and just certification for your cafe in your area. All different places around Australia, around the world have different regulations. So you want to make sure that your insurance is covering you if there's any accidents with any of your appliances, and this kind of falls into that space. So I would think about that. You might want to engage in a plumber to do this. One part of this that I wanted to do earlier, I'm just going to pull the top off that spin jet. So that part comes off and there's just a little washer on there as well. So now I can kind of access this a bit easier. Just have your shifter on the bottom there, just so that I can tighten off that top plate. Now, of course, we want this nice and tight, so that's sealed and the water is not going to escape through there. So once you got that tight, that's nice and firm on there, we'll just build the top. So we're going to put our spinner back on top with this little bottom divot underneath. Then we can put that washer back on. And that top goes on there. So then we can tighten that one up as well, just by hanging on to the arm there as well. Make sure that's nice and tight. So that's how we just put the unit together, and we just make sure that that's all sealed and well. Obviously, once we put pressure to it, that'll tell us whether it's completely watertight or not. But that's how we put that together. So now we're basically at this point, we want to think about positioning of where we're going to put it into our bench. So there's a few different things to consider here. This is one thing that people definitely want this advice from us, because you can pretty well put it anywhere on your bench, but think about what's in your arm's reach of your baristas. You don't want to put it too far away. You actually don't want to put it anywhere that you're going to be pouring coffees. And it's actually going to get in the way of the barista. We definitely hate seeing them put in front of grinders. This is part of the wet area. This has got to be with your milk jugs. It's got to be on the side that you're steaming, so you can literally just be standing there, spinning milk, spinning milk while rinsing jugs and filling up bottles. And of course, this is about sanitization. So we want to keep this area nice and clean, keep your jugs clean. It's going to reduce all the clutter on your bench. I have done a full video on the pros and cons of jug rinsers, so check that out. We'll put a link to that video. They're definitely something I recommend, but they have to suit your cafe. So we're going to think about where it goes. So I just have a preferred location of where I put them, and it's really based on keeping the spaces clear around it. So this is my fake coffee machine. I'm standing here steaming milk. I've got about 150 ml of space in front of me so that I can put a jug down, I can put a cup down. Then I'm going to give myself about another 150 ml there in front of next to my coffee machine. So there's some space there. Now this is also something we really recommend before you cut any holes in your bench is get all of your coffee equipment on the bench. It can be easier for a manufacturer to say, can I put all the holes in your bench before, or if you're pouring a concrete bench and you got to do all that planning, work with your coffee supplier. We definitely work with our customers we've drawn up lots of benches if you want to prefab the bench before, but there's just something about being at this moment and being able to cut your own hole that makes a world of difference to feel it and just be like, even if you need to move the machine over and then move that over. There's also the option where, think about for the future, if you've got a 2-group machine, you want to upgrade to a 3-group machine. Now we're thinking, give yourself some space here, plenty of space, because if you have to send your machine this way, you definitely don't want to have your jug rinser here for your 2-group, because you might want the space for the 3-group in the future. So if we're confident that's there, we're putting it here. Now, before we go and put anything through the bench, let's make sure we're not drilling into a fridge or something else. Now you'll notice that there is quite a depth here. Now I've got to get a drain hose to attach to that, which is going to take a bit of space to turn or curve off, and there is some things we can do about that. But even your water source, we have the option of putting a little L bracket on it, and we can do that. We can save ourselves some space, but we're still really not going to benefit from that a lot once it's wound on. It's still, like I can tell you, we're still probably at least 1500 clearance to this point. So I want to make sure that we consider that, because when this sits in the bench, it's going to hang through the bench, and we really want to make sure that that's not intruding on anything here. So if you've got a fridge and your bench isn't high enough, so this is something that we consider when we're installing or we're building cafes, is we want to think about what fridges we're getting, what height of bench we are, and where we'll actually be putting the jug rinser in before we position our fridges, because there's really no fridges, unless your bench is like 950 high, we're just not going to get that much space under to have everything there. So it's very rare that these jug rinsers go above fridges. So be mindful of where you're going to actually position it. We often put it on the milk side. It'll be over the top of a bin or a clear space in a cupboard, or where the filters go, so you've got that water source straight away. But I'd definitely be thinking about this when you're designing your cafe and your layout, because it's just a huge amount of space that this is going to take up, and it might really change how you lay out underneath your bench. We're always talking to people about that underbench layout just as much as we are above bench. This is, you see all this, but what makes a good cafe super functional, that we're not going to actually clash with other things, is what's under the bench. So my coffee machine's here, my fridge is well out of my way, I've got this whole cavity underneath. So let's get our jug rinser here. I can take that off. So I've said I want to give myself, at least, well, what feels right. I'm going to bring it out here. Now, remembering that we're not going to cut, we definitely don't want to cut this shape. What we actually want to cut is their recommended size. Now, this recommended size is 154 by 142 mil. Now, notice that I am going long ways with this. You can kind of go either way, but I think for a jug, because it does, yeah, you can go either way, but I just find that you tend to go long ways that way. So if we're coming off the bench here and we're just going to mark out this is our corner here, we just have that one spot, we know that's our corner. Now you would want to make sure that you're centered, you've got a square. This is 21.9. So if you're clever and you can make yourself a little stencil like this, this is what we ultimately want to do. So I would put your square on the bench and have that leveled off. That's my position there. So that when my jug rinser goes in, the hole is smaller than that edge, but wider than this. So you can find the downloadable for that online. We'll put that with the product. So you can buy this jug rinser from rtc.com.au. And that would be the shape. So that jug rinser is just going to sit straight down inside that hole. Let's get our protective gear on and start thinking about how we're going to install this or cut this hole. All right, so make sure you have all your protective gear on. Of course, you got to put your goggles on before you do that. All right, so the trick with cutting your hole in your bench, think about the thickness. This is just a simple piece of wood, but we want to make sure that if you are cutting stainless, I'd probably prefer you get a professional to do that. If you're confident doing it, that's fine, but we want to make sure that we can actually get through the material and it's safe to do that. We can cut a nice clean hole. I'm just going to give you, show you how you can easily do it with a jigsaw, and we're going to start these space by drilling some holes. Now, the blade that you use will obviously depend on the bench top that you're using. This is just a simple little bench top to go through this blade, but be mindful that blade has to fit through the hole that you're going to start. So we want to get that through there. So we'll position this. Obviously, we want that hole to land on the outside. We're going to put 4 holes in the bench. Not in the corners, but in the center. Job. 4 simple holes so that when we grab our jigsaw, we can go straight into that hole and start cutting in. Now I would spend a bit of time cleaning that up, making sure it's nice and clean. If you've just obviously polished your bench or varnished it or something, you would finish that off to keep it food grade. We want to make sure that's nice and clean, and the jug rinsers, any water that can kind of get in there is food safe as well. So with that hole, the test is obviously making sure that that jug rinser fits in there perfect and doesn't actually have any movement at all. So that is a beautiful hole. Now we're going to silicone that jug rinser down when we're done anyway. So look at that, beautiful. Coffee machine's over here. We're going to fit milk bottles. We've got plenty of space around it. It's sunk into the bench. If you were going to use something like this, I would consider, I guess, you're going to need holes in the bench for where that water is going to go. It also is pretty awkward, so it's probably something you would put out of reach. All right, so we'd move that one further back if we're going to do that. Now this jug rinser is here, so now we just need to get it all attached to that, to our water source and to our waste. Now we'll start with the water source, so we get that connected. So it comes with a John Guest fitting like this. Now, John Guest is great because it's quite simple. You will have to purchase some of this 3/8 size John Guest line, and obviously you'll have to think about what the other connection is once you get to the other side. So it doesn't have all the fittings. I would probably, this is where the plumber comes in, having the extra parts, or going to you know, somewhere that you can buy those extra pieces. The thing about this is once you attach that water source and then you actually connect that, your under bench depth is now a lot lower because this doesn't curve for a while. So that's the one thing about this that I would just consider, is it's actually going to take up a fair bit of space under your bench, and if there are shelves or anything, you don't want to knock it. That's probably my only concern about that. So if you did want to have the above bench one, you would have to probably get a John Guest fitting that is more of an L bracket. So you can get those and it would potentially sit nicely and shoot out the side. Or if you're going to use more of a braided hose that looks more like this, more traditional, you would need to get something like this L bracket so that it actually shoots towards out that hole as well. So we connect that. So today, I'm just going to think about the fact that we can just go straight through this one. So we're not going to need that L bracket today. I'm just going to connect some braided hose to that. Now, whenever you are doing any of this, when you're kind of connecting water sources, it's a good idea to use some plumber's tape. Little tip, just whenever you apply that plumber's tape, just make sure you wrap it around that fitting in a clockwise direction. So when you tighten it off, it is not going to de-thread by you tightening that. So that'll just go on there, tighten that up. All right, so with that tightened, we can now look at connecting our waste. Now this waste hose again doesn't come with the jug rinser. It is something you have to purchase. It's an 18mm internal diameter just to connect onto there. Now I would recommend getting a little O-ring, O-shackle in there as well. So when you do connect that, we can tighten that off as well. That's just standard 18mm hose. You would get that all the way to the end. Okay, so with that tightened, we'll just put all of our parts back into our hole, and I would put ideally the hole on the further side, so when you're tipping milk in, it kind of flows that way, but it also depends on how the lines kind of flow out the bottom as well. So now you're in, and we're just going to get our waste into our bucket. So run your bucket underneath. Now, little tip is if you are going into a bucket and you want to stop it from catching on the bottom, we'll just kind of cut a little triangle out of this hose so that it never actually creates any suction to the bottom of that bucket, so that if it was to sit flat, it's not going to actually get stuck. It's going to keep flowing, otherwise it will back up through there. So with that into a bucket, or obviously connected to going into an S-trap for a drain, we can do that. There's many places going to a bucket. Just be mindful of how fast this bucket will fill up. And I have seen, been to cafes before, and plumbers not done a great job of installing it, and if this overflows overnight, it'll fill up your bucket really quick. So if you can attach this to a drain, waste outlet, that is ideal. So now we're going to get connected to our water source. All right, so we are just at the roastery. We're just doing a dodgy little setup with the garden hose. I just want to show you, I just want to be able to get it connected so I can run some water. So don't mind me and my dodgy connections. Obviously we'd want to be using the right fittings and get that attached to your water source safely and securely using plumber's tape and using the right fittings. Don't suggest this as your water source. You would definitely want to connect that properly to there. And now let's turn this baby on, test her out with a jug. Oh shit. All right, well, that was fun. We got a bit wet, and that's why you should check all of your connections. But here's the test, and I will say, before I test it, this would have been really handy. This is an isolator switch, so I could have just easily turned it on and off from here. So if you ever have an issue, you can quickly turn your Jug Rinser off. So had I used the John Guest, I would have put that on, but learned my lesson. So now we can apply pressure and we get a nice clean jug. Water flows straight down into the bucket. There we go. We're gonna have clean jugs. We're gonna be sanitary. We have less clutter on our bench. And that, as much as it can get messy, is the simple process to installing a Jug Rinser. Like I said, are you up for this? Are you gonna DIY it? Definitely check your regulations and see if someone can help you. A plumber can put these in. Talk to your trades when you're building a cafe, but hopefully that's been helpful to know exactly where to put it in your bench, and just some of the considerations to think about and how simple it would be, whether it's in the bench or above the bench, to just keep your jugs clean. It's going to help you make better tasting coffee, pour better latte art, stop contaminating your milks. So there you have it. Simple install, simple setup for your new Jug Rinser in your cafe. If this is something that you want to work with us directly on and you want to be an Artisti Cafe partner, please head to artisti.com.au, reach out to us, and we will support you through this. Make sure you're choosing the right equipment for your cafe, things like Jug Rinsers and all the other moments that happen in a cafe. We want to help you design that. So reach out to us. Is there anything I've missed? Have you got one in your cafe? Let us know in the comments below what you think of this one, and it's something that you would attempt to pull off yourself, or if you'll be reaching for the plumber's phone number. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful. I'll see you next time. Bye.